Thanks for tuning in. The following is one of 3 segments from the August Des Moines, Iowa Salesforce user group. Metazoa was our sponsor and did a fantastic job showcasing their snapshot product, talking with us about the challenges of profiles and permission sets. Eric Dreschfield shared his timely and insightful thoughts around the value of diversity within the workforce. Finally, in the third video, I wrap it up with a quick introduction to record-triggered flows and how they compare to Process Builder. I know you're going to enjoy each topic, so let's get started. On our list, I'm going to show you, we're going to do a little bit of training on record-triggered flows. And so I'm going to take us into Salesforce, and this is a newer feature. It was just, I think it was just in this last release. And so we're going to take a look at record triggered flows. So to kick us off, I want to share just a little bit of the importance of learning flow. And we, as you know, most of you know, we've been walking people through a series of flow trainings throughout the year. And we've got a couple more ones coming up, but this is a topic that we did not have on that schedule. And so I thought this would be a great time to do that. So normally you're used to me doing a Terry's Tidbits that is a fairly quick 2 or 3 minute show and tell of something that you might not think about very often. This is not going to be a Terry's Tidbits in that sense. It's going to be more of a showing you a new feature of Salesforce, and hopefully it will be helpful to you. I've only got about 25 minutes, so I'm going to take us through this somewhat quickly. But the reason that I want you to learn flow is because the investment in Process Builder is fading. There are a lot of challenges that can't be overcome using Process Builder. You know, we liked it when it first came out. It was awesome. And then if you've tried to debug a Process Builder and you've got those emails that come in, they're horrendous to try to determine. And there's nothing really that they can do about that to make it any better. So Salesforce is encouraging us to start shifting over to flows. And I think one of the greatest enhancements that is now available is this concept called record triggered flows. And it is a much, much lower level of entry to learning flow. So if flow is something that you have been scared to death of, I hope that you'll find today that it is not as scary as what you might think. So they have really made this significantly better. So I'm going to show you, I've got on the screen here, hopefully you're able to see, we've got a process builder that is running on this particular account record. And I'm going to show you the process builder. And what we're going to do is take this process builder and I'm going to show you what it looks like if you were to build this in a record trigger flow. So as you're familiar, you've got the account object. We've got our decisions that come across the account. Now, in a real org, you probably have a lot more decisions than just 3, but for the sake of our presentation, we'll keep it small. And the first one is simply if the account revenue is greater than $1 billion, then we want to set the account focus field, which is a custom field. We want to make this a key account. Okay, so that's step 1. That continues down here to a CSAT rating. If our CSAT rating, also a custom field on the account, is changed to unsatisfied, we're going to do a couple of things in the process builder, or this is what we're going to do in the flow, I should say. We're transitioning this process builder into flow. So the customer priority, we want to switch that to high. And we also want to put a chatter post out on the record to indicate that, hey, this is a customer who is no longer happy. And then the final one is a simple little checkbox that's next to the address field that if it is marked as true, then it's going to update the contacts with the same address that we have on the account. Okay, so that's the process builder. That's what you're probably used to building out in your org, we're going to transition this over to a flow. So I've got the flows already pre-built, but I am going to walk you through just because of sake of time, I'm going to walk you through what I've already built. But let me get you started with a new flow. And when you click your new flow, you have the option now of this record trigger flow. And that's what we're using in this example today. So record trigger flows, when you come in, you do get that blank canvas. It's a little bit scary, but I'm going to show you how unscary it can be here. So that's how you're going to get started. I'm going to actually take you in again because of time. I'm going to take you into the actual flow. So I've got the flow already created here, and I called it account before create update. And that simply means that when you hit that save button on the record, there is a concept of the record actually getting written to the database. And then there's the concept of that record finally being committed or the transaction being complete. So when you're building these record trigger flows, we have this before the save and we have the after the save. And then the transaction of the save is complete at the very end. So in this particular case, I'm running here I set this up to be when a record is created or updated, and I've got the option to set it as a before or as an after. Now, how do you know which one of those to use? And I kind of follow a simple rule here. If I am updating the object that is initiating the process, so in this case, the account, if I'm going to update other account fields, I'm going to do this in a before save. And the reason I want to do it before is because I haven't saved it to the database yet. So if I can do it before I save it to the database, from a processing standpoint, I am saving, it's a much more efficient process because I'm not having to come back to commit that record again. So that's a before trigger. The after trigger concept is more if I am updating a different object, then I'm going to use the after. So if in our process builder, we were updating contacts addresses. So I'm going to show you that one in the after trigger. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. If not, tell me to slow down in the chat window. I have it up where I can see it, and I'll try to explain it a little bit differently. So clicking on the box gets you this screen. This is our before record save. Now, just like we have in Process Builder, we have decision blocks. And they look basically like they do in Process Builder. So I can simply drag these onto my page layout, and then I have the ability to define what they do. So I'm going to double click on my example. This is kind of the equivalent of what you're doing. Well, it is the equivalent of what you're doing in Process Builder in the decision block. The difference here is I can have multiple outcomes. In Process Builder, it's either a true or a false. Here, I can have an equation that can evaluate multiple things and go down different paths. But conceptually, it's the same thing. It's still a decision that's being made. And so I've created a label here, and I'm saying, is the annual resource greater than $1 billion? Now, what's cool in the record trigger flows is, and I'm going to delete this out, is this concept called the S record. S record is the account object in this case. I didn't have to do anything to get this record into the flow, just like you don't have to think about it with Process Builder. You don't have to think about it here either. It's S record represents that account record. And if I click into there, you can see there's a little arrow next to it. There's a list of all of my fields on that account object. And so I forgot what was this one, revenue? If I start typing in the field name, it will bring that up and kind of narrow that search down for me. So simply selecting that, finishing out my equation, in this case, greater than $1 billion. And then I've got this decision defined. Now, my default are in Process Builder's concept, the false side of your decision. That's what's happening here in what I labeled as continue. All right, so looking at it here, so I've got my decision. If it meets that criteria of over $1 billion, it's going to come down this path and into what we call an assignment. So think of this assignment as the action portion of what you did in Process Builder. And if I take a look at that assignment, you can see that again, I'm using the record, the dollar record, and I'm setting the account level to a pick list value of key account. You'll notice here in the record, for those of you who are used to flows, you're familiar with this, but for those who aren't, your pick list values show up right here. You didn't have to do anything to define them. They're already in your list and you simply can select them. So we're setting account level to key account. Now, when this happens, and in our Process Builder, do I still have it? Yeah, so in our Process Builder, I have this evaluate next criteria. That's what's happening here. So from here, I took and drew a line down to our next decision. And that next decision is related to the CSAT score. Exact same concept. I'm watching time here closely so we can get through this. Resource is that, again, the dollar record, and then my field equals, and then my pick list value showed up automatically, equals unsatisfied. And then I have the concept of continuing on as well. If I meet the criteria for unsatisfied, it's just simply another assignment. And that assignment sets the customer priority to high. Let me pause for just a second and say, does anybody have any questions on how that worked? Looking at chat, I don't see anything there. You'll notice as well, and I didn't say this up front, but your options in a before trigger are very simple here. You don't have all of the complexity of a bunch of different elements that you have to stop and think, okay, now what does that do? It's really straightforward. They made this crazy, crazy easy. So before triggers, or before save record triggers, super easy. You also have this concept, and it's grayed out here a little bit because it's already active, but you have to activate your flow just like you have to activate your Process Builder. Okay, once it's activated, you're able to go out and test it to verify that it's doing what you need it to do. If not, you'll do a save, another save, and that'll create a new version, again, just like Process Builder did for you. Any questions on that? That seem easy enough? All right, for those of you on video, I'm kind of watching. All right, so I'm gonna go back out of this one.
Terry, it looks like we do have a question that came in through the chat.
Oh, thank you. Is the reason the update record element not available is because it's a before trigger? That is absolutely right. And next, Corey, I'm gonna take us into the after trigger. And you're going to see that you do have that capability in our after trigger. Now, here, keep in mind that before trigger, I was updating prior to the record being saved. In the after trigger, it's now after it's been saved, but before the entire save transaction has completed. And so I bring in my definition here. Again, it's record created or updated. This time I'm in the after. Now here you can see that we've got a lot more capability here. We've got the ability to create records. So as Corey was saying there, or asking about the update, there's our update, create. We can get records as well. Get records allow us to go out and in essence build a query. So some things that you cannot do in Process Builder, you can do here in Flow that gives you significantly greater capabilities. So If I need to go after a record that's a little bit further away from the account object and I can't do it in Process Builder, I might have that ability to go get it here. I also have the ability to do a delete record, which you cannot do in Process Builder. So again, all it is simply dragging elements onto your page and defining them, where Process Builder kind of presents you a defined path. You're creating the defined path here by dragging those elements onto the page. Your after trigger also uses that same dollar record. That thing is fantastic. I love having that available. It just makes life so much easier. And here we've got in the after, if they are unsatisfied, so I'm going down the unsatisfied path. Remember in Process Builder we had the create a chatter post. I could not do that in the before trigger. It did not, that capability was not part of the before trigger, but it is underneath these actions, something I can do in the after. So that's why CSAT I've got in both the before as well as the after. And now I don't want to go overly complicated here, but the message that you saw that you could quickly type out, I've got that same message defined in what's called a text template. And it looks like this. So there's our message. That is what we will post in our chatter. And so when you look at the action, that's what the message is. It's just referencing it from another type of variable. And our target record is the dollar record ID. That means we're going to tie this chatter post to the account record. Okay. Once that's done, I'm going to go down to the next decision, which was the last portion of the Process Builder where we were going to go update the contact addresses. And so this decision here is simply looking to see, is the checkbox set to true? Did somebody check that box that when they've updated the address, they want it to go update all of the contact records? So that's the only outcome I have here. And if I do, now this is a piece that's a little bit not as friendly as what Process Builder is. In Process Builder, it automatically knows to go get those contacts just by clicking a couple buttons. Here, you have to tell it what records you want to go get. So we're going to do a update record, and when we look at this, the object that I'm updating is the contact object where it meets this criteria. So we're saying here, if the contact's account ID equals our record ID, which is the account ID, those are the contacts that we want to update. Does that make sense? Okay. And then moving down the page, I'm able to then very easily map my billing city to the mailing state city, country to country, postal code to postal state, and street to state and street. Again, all leveraging that nice little dollar record value that's been set up. Now, the next thing that I need to do, I think it's in the Process Builder as well, is I want to uncheck that checkbox that said to go do this. So that's all this assignment piece is doing here, is it's taking that update flag and it's turning it back off. Does that make sense? Any questions on that process? I can show you, and I will. Yeah, thanks, Eric. I appreciate you being on too. Take care. It was great to see you again. Thanks so much for participating. I'm going to share a new screen here with you, and this kind of explains it explains how a record is saved in Salesforce. So when you click that save button, there is a series of system verifications or validations that happen. The record triggered flow will run. So this is the before portion of what I showed you with the flow. So that it's happening very, very early, which is nice. It actually is happening before Apex triggers. So if you've got triggers in your system, that's the items that were created in code. So if you had a programmer write you a trigger, that's when the before trigger runs. Your system and user validations, system validations will rerun, and your validation rules also run next in the line of items. Duplicate rules will run after that. And then this concept where I told you that the record gets saved, that happens after those duplicate rules. And then your after trigger code runs, assignment rules run. If you've got workflows still in your system, then those are going to run next. I hope that you're at this point close to moving away from the workflow rules. Process builder will run after workflow rules. And then escalation rules run. And I thought the order of execution here was kind of interesting because your after record trigger flow runs way at the very end. So those run even after workflow rules process your existing process builder. So be aware of that. I kind of wanted it when it first came out. My gut thought was, well, the before runs right before the trigger. So I thought, well, it would kind of make sense that the after would run right before the after trigger. That is not the case. It runs almost at the very, very end of the entire process. And then like I said, the record is finally committed, or that entire save process is complete at the very end. So any questions? We've got about 6 minutes left. Any questions on those record trigger flows or order of execution, anything like that? Or if you just have a general question that you've been dying to ask, feel free to unmute or throw it in the chat window, and we'll see if we can answer for you.
Terry, do you have this order of execution that includes this recorded trigger, or the record triggers? Do you have this on your site?
I do not have this one out there. I just added, I had to modify the one that I had before and add the record trigger. So I do not have it out there yet. I will get it out there. I will also have it posted on my social media accounts as well. So if you're looking for it, you can find it on, it will soon be out on Terry's Tidbits. That would be my Twitter handle. Yeah, Terry's Tidbits. I can post it in the community too, Kevin, just for fun.
I'm sure I can get it multiple different ways. I just want to be able to reference it again later on. I thought it was very helpful.
I had a guy steal one of my graphics, so I'm probably going to try to see if I can, and he took all of my labels off of it, which I thought, well, that was kind of dumb. I reported him. But I'm going to see if I can't put some kind of a watermark behind this so that it makes it a little bit harder to do. That was kind of fun. That was my 4 a.m. Process this morning, finally.
Oh, man.
All good, all good. The positive from my side is he must have found it useful and helpful because he liked it well enough to try to reuse it. So that's all good. Any questions? I know it's a new concept. Does that seem like a easier way to learn flow? That before side is really, I mean, it is super, super simple because you have to get in there and play with it. There still is that learning curve, but it's, the bar is so much lower than the traditional full-fledged, screen flows and those types of things that have scared a lot of people away from flows.